Howdy, mates. Good afternoon. How are we doing today? No, really. How are we doing? In which today is a means of being grateful once again. My supervisor allowed me to take a couple of days off for me to take a trip to an area that I've not been to for nearly 10 years. The last time I was up this way, it was literally in the dead of winter. Or I shouldn't say the dead of winter, the brunt of winter. February 2014. I looked very different back then, by the way. And there was a lot of snow, that's for sure. But rather, this time, there's an experience to see it during the autumn equinox. I present to you the Upper Peninsula. We're actually not too far from the Lake Superior, one of 5 Great Lakes. Of course, we do have all 5 of them, which include Lake Superior, Ontario, Huron, Michigan, Erie. I think that was all of them. Anyway, Upper Peninsula is of course part of Michigan, but it's further up north, close to Canada. And we are in a great example of a maple, beech, and birch forest. Wow, that was quite of a mouthful. A little bit of play on words too, you know. Birch, beech, variants of the other word. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, much of the birches that are found up here include yellow birch and yellow and river birch. And the thing is, those particular trees, you will normally only see them further up north, just because that is usually the conditions that they prefer. They like to have cooler summers, whereas if they were further south, they would not make it. They would basically wither and die. But it turns out that this year, it's actually mast year. For those of you who have not heard of that, a mast year refers to where a lot of our trees, whether they're maples, oaks, which you can see some out here, birches, any type of tree that does produce a source of food, there's extra of that source. So the thing is, okay, you have a little extra, so in essence, that creates more opportunity for wildlife to thrive. But a common question that comes to mind is, okay, we have this increasing population, but how are the trees going to keep up with that? Well, the thing is, mast year only happens every so often. I'll have to double check in terms of how often it occurs, but I do know that it's not an annual thing. And so it's kind of like a temporary boost, but then eventually, as it gets into the following year, when the trees start producing their nuts again, they won't produce as much as a mast year. And thus, in essence, that keeps the wildlife population in check. But for another, you figure, since the nuts are falling, or the fruits, whichever, you figure a lot of our wildlife, whether they are mouses, squirrels, chipmunks, they're collecting those seeds. And oftentimes, squirrels, for example, will bury those seeds, and they may forget about them. So in essence, what happens is, essentially, they are acting like an ecosystem engineer. They're essentially helping to plant the trees within a forest canopy. And of course, usually a forest is made up of 3 distinct layers. You have the canopy, you have the understory, which is some of the shorter trees that are much younger, and your ferns. And of course, you actually have the ground cover, which is where you will usually see the decayed leaf matter, lichens, moss. So you have to admit, a forest is quite of a complex ecosystem, which we need them for sure. We need them for our survival. All right, you guys, take care. Enjoy your Friday, and of course, Journey on a Journey is onwards. Take care, folks. See ya.